Okay, let's move on to our other game. This is a Saturday game. The Rams are playing against the Cleveland Browns in Cleveland. A couple of winless teams here. Browns 3-point favorite. 42.5 is the total. And when I look at the Rams offense, they've been drafting speed, and I like that aspect of it. And yet we haven't seen that offensive production at all. We didn't see it all last regular season, and we're not seeing it so far in the preseason. We saw it in Week 1. They had 388 yards against the Saints, but when they played more last week, laid an egg against Green Bay. Had just 216 total yards. They lost 21-7, just 78 yards rushing, 2.9 yards per carry against a rebuilding Packer defense. Sam Bradford played his first game, 9 of 12 for 101 yards, but most of the stuff was underneath. So this is not an explosive Rams offense. And then when I look at the Browns, you know, everybody's talking about the quarterback controversy going on. The thing that stands out for me about the Browns is their defense. The defense was very good last season. 8th against the pass, 18th against the run. A lot of depth and talent. They're on a 3-year run now of 31-15-1 under the total. And even this preseason, the defense has been the story. They lost the opener, but lost just 13-12 to the Rams. They allowed 3.7 yards per carry, just 77 rushing yards by the Lions, and they forced 2 turnovers. And in the Monday night game against Washington, the defense allowed 117 rush yards against a very good Washington rush offense, just 3.8 yards per carry. And on the other side of the ball, Manziel, you know, Hoyer that game was 2 of 6, 16 yards, so he never got in sync. And Manziel, 7 of 16, 65 yards. However, he struggled against Washington's first-team defense. So I'm not sold on this. Sean, I'm going to put you in charge as Cleveland Browns general manager. So
I'm in charge?
Yeah, you're in charge. And as a reporter, I come to you and I say, Sean, who is going to be the opening day starter? Is it going to be Brian Hoyer, Johnny Manziel, or Otto Graham? Who do you say?
You know what? You just took my thunder. I would pick up the phone and call Otto Graham, old number 60, who probably nobody remembers from Northwestern, a tremendous quarterback. In fact, one of the questions you asked, Cleveland Browns have had, 20 starting quarterbacks going back to about the year 2000. I don't know how many coaches they've had, and I think they had 3 starting quarterbacks last year alone. And the question is, when was the last time the Browns actually had a very good quarterback? And I think you have to go back to the early 80s. Anybody remember Brian Sipe? And even before that, this guy's still alive, by the way. Went to Rice University back in the 60s. Dr. Frank Ryan. In fact, their last championship game, Frank Ryan was the quarterback. He's still alive, by the way. And then, of course, before that, you have to go to Otto Graham, who really made that, him and Paul Graham made that team go.
Automatic Otto.
Automatic Otto, yeah. Strange thing about this game, first of all, I couldn't find a trend. You know, I tend to look for these type of systems, but this is the first home game for Cleveland in preseason, even though they're 0-2, and this is the first road game for St. Louis. So there's going to be some interest in this. And both of these teams are 0-2. The line I saw in this game is Cleveland 3. The total's 42.5. First road game for St. Louis. Coach Fisher, I've always liked him through the years, even when he goes back, I think, to the Houston Oilers. He's always been a guy who covers lines. But since he's been with the Rams, and I think this is his 3rd year, he's 14-7-1 straight up in his 2 years, and they play in a really tough division. I'm not a Sam Bradford fan. There's never been a secret about that. When they drafted him number 1 coming out of Oklahoma, he was injured coming out of college. I don't understand why you would draft damaged goods, but they did. He's no Joe Namath. And he's also currently coming off a knee surgery. I'm going to make some comments about this Cleveland team, home game, with this soap opera they have going on. This team, believe it or not, in my opinion, has the sleeper player in a quarterback named Connor Shaw, who went undrafted, and I have no idea why no one drafted this kid. He comes from a 27-5 straight-up record at South Carolina, from a much stronger program than A&M has, which is where Manziel came from. And do we all know who the coach of Florida is? Anybody want to guess who the coach of Florida is? I think
South Carolina.
I'm sorry, yeah. Well, he was at Florida.
Yes.
He was at Florida. I think Steve Spurrier is a pretty strong coach, and he comes from that program. And Cleveland, with another new coach? This is a team that's had 10 losses or more in 10 of their last 11 seasons. Give this kid a shot. Did you see him play Monday night? I'm surprised they even let him play. 8 for 9. And I mean, he put some real good touch on the ball for these receivers. Between defenders, he ran real well. He's a bigger quarterback than Manziel. Who's the head case? You know who he reminds me of? Manziel. He has all the talent in the world. I'm not taking that away from him. He reminds me, believe it or not, of Michael Vick with that gesture that he made.
Oh, yes.
There's no call for that. The only problem with Manziel is he's got more money than any team owner has. He's got no reason to play. And I'm not okay, so you have to draft him at some point. I'm not sure why they did it number 1. And does anybody think that Brian Hoyer is going to be around much longer? He'll probably be there another year or 2. He's just looking for a paycheck. I can understand him wanting to play. But they ought to take a look at this kid, Connor Shaw. You got him on your team. And if I'm another team owner somewhere, I would hope that Cleveland cuts him, and I would pick him up in a heartbeat. That kid showed me a lot. Now, it's only preseason, but what are these other 2 guys showing? Somebody knows how to shoot the finger, and another kid doesn't know how to find the end zone. What a game. Cleveland at home -3. I'd be looking at the dog in this game. I think the Browns are not going to be any better this year than they have been in the past 15.
Let's talk a little bit about the big controversy in Cleveland. Well, if you were going to pick a team that would draft the biggest bonehead out of college, you might pick Cleveland because it's been 100 years since that city has won anything in any sport. Johnny Manziel, the kid that is entitled, and he doesn't have the work ethic, and he thinks, you know what he thinks doesn't smell, okay? He just is not ready for prime time. He's too young. He's got talent. But the problem is, in the NFL, you need to be bigger, and you need to be stronger, and you need to learn how to slide, and you need to be able to stay in the pocket and find receivers. It's not a league where you can run around and get hit like RG3 did last night, which is absolutely ridiculous for him because he got hurt already. He knows what it's like to lose a year, blow out an ACL, whatever, and he was doing the same thing again last night. So I'm making a prediction that neither one of these guys are going to be anything that we really are going to write home about in this league. They're not the long-term solution for either one of these teams. Cousins for Washington should be the starter. And I don't know what to do with Cleveland. Hoyer looked good last year in a limited amount of games, 3 games, but he did work under Brady and Belichick years ago. He has a lot more experience at that level, and maybe the pressure of drafting a Manziel and then threatening what Hoyer thought was his job to begin with, and then he didn't earn it. I mean, maybe that pressure has cracked him up. He absolutely looks terrible. They signed Rex Grossman, and quite frankly, he might be the answer for Cleveland short term because these guys look absolutely awful. They have a kid came off the bench last night who in college, we all saw him play in college if you follow college ball, Connor Shaw, 24 and 1 TDs to interceptions. Spurrier was his coach. He thinks very highly of him. I don't know why this guy didn't get drafted. He needs a shot. He needs a shot. There are good players out there with bigger hearts, bigger, better work ethics than a Johnny Manziel who thinks he's entitled to everything. I predict he doesn't make it. I think Connor Shaw could make it if you give him a shot.
Does anybody remember the last time they were in the playoffs? I think it was, what was that coach's name? Bill Belichick? Is he still around? I think the last time Cleveland was in a playoff was in Bill Belichick's time, and that's got to be 15,
I believe
17,
right.
whatever it is,
20 years ago. Actually.
Yeah, a long time ago.
Yeah.
Long time ago.
Yeah, well, I would agree with you. It's a tough game to back the home team in, especially at that key number.
Haven't shown anything.
Yeah, exactly, especially on offense.
I will say one thing. Did you see that Cleveland defense on goal line? If they could just stop making penalties. They kept Washington out of there, and I think one of the calls had to be reversed, and I thought it was the right call. But the point is, the defense showed me some stuff, but the offense, no, nothing, 0. So. And
as for the, not making the announcement of who's going to be the starter, I wouldn't do it if I'm the coach, if I'm not confident.
He keeps putting it off. It's a soap opera drama in Cleveland. That's all it is. I really feel sorry for the fans there. I really do.
Well, put it off if you're not certain. I mean, I think 2 years ago when the Seattle, they gave Matt Flynn all that money, right, and he was supposed to be the starter, but Carroll said, no, I'm going with this kid Russell Wilson.
Yeah, who's he?
Yeah, going by what he saw in practice and on the field. And if you're not sure, don't do it for public relations purposes to try and keep your team confident. You got to make the right choice. Let them play it out for the preseason. Start them in week 4 if you have to.